Happy Tuesday, y'all. Tiffanie Kellog coming here today with our Tuesday Talks. And today I am very excited to be joined by Frank. Welcome, Frank, to our Tuesday Talks live stream.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you bringing me here. You got quite a setup. So motion graphics and everything.
Well, I have read somewhere that sometimes people get bored, and so I'm always like, what kind of fun can we add in? So yeah, we're gonna have some fun. We'll be here, we might go there.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Fun here on this Tuesday. I mean, Friday is our fun talk, but we bring fun into all that we do.
I sense that's pretty much who you are. So
yeah, if it's not fun, why are we doing it? I mean, unless the paycheck's really big.
Yeah.
And I like to have fun when I'm getting paid too.
Okay, good.
So Frank, where in the world are you?
I live in Columbus, Ohio. You're down in Florida, so I should ask, how are you with the hurricane and all that?
So luckily for us, the hurricane, we just got lots of wind and rain personally, though we have a lot of clients, some that haven't made it back in because they can't even get to their houses. My aunt's house, they've had to rip everything out, as well as for them, they only had a few inches of flooding, so they only had to remove the bottom couple of feet.
Right.
Versus gutting the entire house. But yeah, it's been a pretty hard week for a lot of people in the Southeast United States. Did you get anything up there in Ohio, or it turned quick enough?
No, we got tons of rain. But you know what? We were kind of going through a drought, so it really hit at a good time. So I won't gloat. I mean, I'm not gloating. It's horrible, but yeah, it was good for us. So.
We have to look at every situation in life. What is the silver lining? Because it's not like we can change the fact that there was a hurricane here. There's nothing we can do about that. We just have to live with, all right, here's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Frank, we're super excited to have you. What is it that you do? Tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick backstory. I used to be an attorney. I went to law school here at the Ohio State University. I worked at a big firm, went into private practice, got into a networking group years ago. It was based out of Pittsburgh. This is in the 90s, and I had an opportunity to buy it, and I did. And I became what I call a student of networking. I'm always learning as to how we can be better at networking, how we can get more referrals. But the bulk of what I do is I run a networking organization called AmSpirit Business Connections. Weekly meetings, one per category. Many people are familiar with that through maybe experience with BNI, or there are other groups out there similar to that.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you bring up there's other groups out there similar to that. We like to talk about the fact that there's 8 different types of networking organizations that people can be a part of. And I recommend 3 is really the number of groups that you want to be a part of, just to be able to be a great member and be active and involved. And like, if you're not working your network, then you shouldn't even bother going.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are like, oh, wait, you want us to be part of more than one networking group? I mean, what in your mind would be a reason why people might want to be in more than one networking group?
Well, they're different. The groups are different. Networking is not the same as referrals. I mean, people go to a chamber meeting and they're networking, but they're not really talking about referrals. Civic organizations like the Rotary or Kiwanis, Lions Club, that's networking, but it's really not business oriented. So there are lots of different levels of what we're getting out of networking. So that's how I look at it. And
and I like that. Yes, there are differences. The example that I sometimes use is beer, but we're going to go with coffee and tea since you're not a beer drinker. That works.
Yep.
Some people love their coffee and all coffees. What are you, Frank, when it comes to your hot beverage of choice?
I'll grab a Coke. That's what I'll grab. Yeah.
So that works. Some people are Coke versus Pepsi. Do you remember, Frank? We're going to show our age. Do you remember the Pepsi challenge?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So what was the Pepsi challenge for those people that are way younger than us that are watching?
I think the Pepsi challenge is they just had the sodas in cans, unmarked cans, and you chose the one that you preferred, and Pepsi won. And they really dissected it, and the reason is that Pepsi's just a little sweeter than Coke. But and I don't care, right? If I go to a restaurant, it's with Diet Coke, okay, yeah, I don't care. It needs some caffeine, right?
Oh, and see, I care hardcore. Like, I'll
Okay.
drink Coke Zero, and
Okay.
that's about it when it comes to, like, I mean, I'll drink Sprite, but to me, that's in a different class. When it
Sure,
comes to like the brown, sugary sodas, Coke Zero are nothing for me.
Okay. All right.
It sounds like you're, whatever works.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about your networking organization. What are some of your favorite things about it, and why do you have that as part of the organization after all these years?
Well, the reason we're really all about referrals, and I can't speak to other organizations, but pretty much everything we do is focused on referrals, and we continue to head down that path and refine how we get referrals, how we talk about referrals, how people pass referrals, and it's really always kind of evolving, because somebody will come up with a different way of saying something or a different way of approaching it. And then that information kind of proliferates throughout the whole organization. The meetings are the meetings. There's nothing, I always tell people there's only so many ways you can shake a hand. There's only so many ways you can have a meeting. And so we have other organizations out there that I don't want to call people competitors, because we're all serving the community in our own way. And like you indicated, not everybody likes coffee. And that's just the way it is. But yeah, it's, really things related to referrals and, having workshops and just getting people to understand. The big thing I find with respect to entrepreneurs is they know their business really well, which is great, but they assume everybody else knows their business really well. And so they end up talking in quasi jargon and thinking everybody understands what they're saying, and they're not. And that's where they lose out.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. This morning, I was having a conversation at the gym with some gals. So we were doing yoga, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got my VA on that. I should have it today. And somebody looked at me like, what do you mean VA? And I'm like, who doesn't know I'm so in this entrepreneurial world, and VAs just being so common that, and I was like, maybe I just need to call them my assistant. Now, because the VA is, I would assume that and most of your members know, and VA is a normal thing.
Well, it is in our world. My wife's got a corporate job, and we have these conversations, almost little debates, not arguments, but, I wouldn't do that. And I'm like, you know what? You wouldn't do that because you have a paycheck twice a month. If you don't have a paycheck, those are things you need to do. And I'm not talking about selling yourself or anything like that, but, we've all had situations where we were supposed to have a call and it didn't happen for whatever reason. And in her mind, it's like, well, I'm done with that person. If they stood me up, I would be done with them. And my mind is like, you know what? You have to give people a little grace, because you don't know what's going on in their world. They don't have a tech department that's making sure everything's up 24/7. And so it might be something like that, or they might have had a true emergency and they don't have a fallback. So that we just, most people aren't entrepreneurs. So
yeah, isn't that an interesting thing? I got out of college and had like my first real job, and then got laid off. And 2003, I moved to Florida and started my business. So I was 2 years out of college, no idea what I was doing. I cold called for a couple of years, and then I found networking and fell in love with that. And almost everybody in my life is either an entrepreneur or related or married to an entrepreneur. Like, I would think 90% of my connections on Facebook and LinkedIn are all entrepreneurs. And so sometimes it's really easy to get stuck in this, I'm an entrepreneurial girl living in an entrepreneurial world.
Yeah.
And we're the minority.
We are. Well, and I talk to people about similarly. I'll ask people, how many longshoremen, like in the Midwest, how many longshoremen do you know? I don't know any. That's because you don't live on the coast. Do you know any railroad people? Well, no, that's because the railroad is not through here. But if you lived in Toledo or Chicago, you would probably know a lot of railroad people. If you lived in Long Beach, California, you would probably know lots of longshoremen, and they all hang out together. Truckers hang out together. So it stands to reason that, entrepreneurs kind of hang with other entrepreneurs.
That makes total sense. And I'm going to take a really hard segue. This doesn't even make sense, but it's in my head.
Okay.
Because what I find is when we're looking for referrals, it's kind of like fishing. When we can find one for somebody in our network, we can find many. And so I always think about when I'm telling people what a good referral for me is, where are these people hanging out together so you can get me not one, but many? What are your thoughts on that? I know I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
Yeah, well, it's I use a lot of metaphors, Tiffanie. All roads are connected, right? Every road out there's not a road that you can't get to anywhere else. I mean, you literally can drive from Barrow, Alaska, all the way to the southern tip of the South America.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with networks. We're all connected. And so you just never know where somebody might lead. Some of my best opportunities have come from the least likely places where I might be like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't even mention it. There's no way they know somebody. And lo and behold, they've got a brother-in-law or a cousin or a neighbor that's the perfect fit. And, that's the wonderful thing about networking. It's such an adventure. Every day you just wake up and you just don't know where it's going to go.
Though we have to actually go if we want to network. And I'm a big believer in online and offline networking. I think both work. They're different and you can develop the relationship. So tell us a little bit more about your group, kind of what the structure is. If I was thinking about wanting to become a part, where do I go to find information on that? Who's a good fit for your organization? All those fun kind of things.
Yeah. Again, the name of the organization is Am Spirit Business Connections. Weekly meetings. During the pandemic, we went online like pretty much everybody else. Every one of our groups went online. And when the lockdown started to go away, and it differed in different states, but I told the membership, I said, listen, it's really up to you. If you want to stay online, then stay online. If you want to go back to in person, then please go back to in person. But if you're going to be online, make sure, or if you're going to go back to in person, make sure you're accommodating people who might have challenges. 95% of our groups went back to in person. That's what they wanted. And I know there are a lot of groups out there and they're virtual, and they're probably doing fine, and there's room for both. But our members, there's something about a handshake. There's something about a hug, and that's what they wanted. As far as we've got chapters. We're not as ubiquitous as BNI is, but I have chapters as far east as Plymouth Rock and as far west as Phoenix, Arizona, with a lot of open space in between. And it's just a matter of reaching out to me. I'm certainly, if you can't find a group that you want to get into, or don't want to be in, but you would like to have a group, certainly reach out to me. I spoke with a woman yesterday in Denver, Colorado. That's her story. She can't find a group. Her boss is saying, you need to get into a group. And she read about us on Reddit of all places. I am not on Reddit, Tiffanie. I don't know, I don't know how it happened, but she said, I heard great things about your organization, and she reached out. And so we're going to, we'll build a group there. And that's, how we've got chapters in Chicago and Pittsburgh. You just find people who want something. I don't want to say a little different, because I've never been in BNI. I've never been in all these other this is all I know. So I bristle at, hey, how are you better? I don't know. And I don't even like the whole word better.
Yeah.
We're just different. And we're really focused on referrals. But if you're interested, I would welcome a conversation and just even talk about it. I talked, you're in business, Tiffanie. Everybody you talk to doesn't turn into a client, right?
Correct. Right.
I tell my wife all the time, my life is built on disappointment, right? It's not the successes that you should marvel at. You should marvel at the fact that I dust myself off after many, many disappointments. That's the amazing thing.
Yeah. So I do have the link, y'all, for the website. So you can go to amspirit.com. That will give you an opportunity to see where the groups are. Now, are you easy to find on Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that, Frank?
Yeah. I know people all around the world, and had a conversation with this guy, um, Vistar Gupta or something like that. I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be easy to find on LinkedIn. How many Vistar Guptas are out there? And there's like 50, right? I think I'm the only Frank Agin on LinkedIn. So it's
Nice.
pretty easy to find. Yeah, I'm not as you have at Tiffanie Kellogg. You were an early adopter, so you've got that. But I'm
Yeah.
pretty easy to
Anytime there's a
find.
new platform that comes out, I join so I can get the at Tiffanie
Yep,
Kellogg.
you're smart.
And I don't always go back
Yeah, but that's
just
okay.
because, but yeah, when there's a big one that everybody's talking about, let me grab at Tiffanie Kellogg. Yeah, we're of that early generation where we're the first ones in here, and so we're able to get our names closer. I can't imagine what it's going to be like in 50 or 100 years.
Yeah.
There won't be. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
So we originally connected back in 2020 when you had me on your podcast. Now, can you tell me a little bit about your podcast? Because there's definitely some synergy going on when it comes to networking.
Yeah, I started. It's called Networking RX. I started in September of 2018. Somebody was talking to me about building a sales funnel, and I just said, I don't want to. I don't. A sales funnel is not for me. It's not how I'm going to find franchisees. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I just have a lot of great information on networking. I've been doing it for years. Science, all sorts of stuff on network. I just want to share it. And he said, well, you're talking about a podcast. I'm like, well, maybe I am. And so I looked into it. My daughter was interning with me that summer, and I just said, okay, I'm going to be gone for a week. I've got travel. She outlined the whole thing for me, had it all set up when I got back. And I just jumped into it. And the biggest fear with respect to, at least my biggest fear with respect to podcasting was, do I have enough interesting things to say? Maybe a year, maybe two. I think
And
you were
I'm chuckling over here because what episode are you on now?
765. I think yeah. So yeah, it just keeps going. So yeah, no, it's a great, it's what it is. People like, what are you getting from podcasting? I'm meeting a lot of great people. I'm meeting a lot of great people. I don't really question. I don't sit here and measure every day where it's going. I learn things. I learn things from you. I learn things from other people I interview. I get on other people's show, obviously here. There's just a lot of neat things that come from it. And yeah, it takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of thought, but you've got to put your time and thought into something anyway. It beats cold calling, I think. Well, I know that's my opinion. I don't, but it's a way of helping people and helping others get their message out. And, who knows?
Yeah, I love podcasting, and we did a podcast a few years back. I want to say 2018 or so. We did about 30 episodes, and I'm like, because my husband and I were doing it. And I've fallen in love with live streaming here just because it's like, let's go live and have these conversations. Like, I almost feel like these are kind of one-sided one-to-ones where it's like, tell me about you, tell me about your business. Let me get to know you a little bit and do it with the audiences watching and saved forever. And it's fun to have these conversations with people and get to know folks.
Well, I think there's, back to your coffee thing, there's just lots of different approaches. And I'll have people reach out. You should do this. It's like, you should do it. That's not me. That's not me. It sounds like your show. That's not me. And, so you kind of get a cadence, and again, you learn things along the way. Hey, I should do this or I should do that. And my intros are totally different because somebody taught me a different way, and graphics are different, and it's a lot of fun.
And we like to have fun. Now, switching gears, a little bit more succinct of a change here. You brought up fun. I know we talked about networking being an adventure. When you're not working, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, here's the thing. I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. Um, I don't I don't say I work on Christmas Day, but I might, right? I mean, it's not, I mean, it's not like I don't feel like I have to, but over the course of a weekend, I might, oh, I got an idea for an article. I got an idea for this. I got, I'm going to go to the office and I'm going to record a podcast. But, so I do tend, people would say, well, you work a lot, but I really love what I do. And, but, beyond that, I watch a lot of sports. I was working on some stuff on QuickBooks for the business this week and had the football games on. Watch football, watch soccer. I love going to the movies. And then the third thing, I've written 2 novels and I'm working on a third. So that's kind of I'll get up early on a Saturday or Sunday morning and I'll just crank out 4 or 5 pages. And
so I'm assuming you said novels and not books, which puts it in the fiction realm.
Yeah, they're fictional. Yeah.
So what kind of fiction are you writing?
I call them love stories. I mean, but they're different sorts of love stories. They're the backdrop in every one of the books is football, either high school football or college football. But it's not about football, right? I don't explain the game, but it's the relationships amongst the players and the relationships, the fathers and sons, or the second one I wrote was a story about a guy who switched high schools. He went from one high school to the crosstown rival, and just having to build relationships in a place where he's hated, and then become hated in a place where he was once beloved. And so I have a lot of fun with it. It's all relationships.
So did you play high school, college football?
I did. Yeah, I played. I played high school and then Division III football, and that's really what kicked it off. I got hurt my senior year in college, and that pretty much ended things. And it was kind of me exercising my demons, if you will. Just decided, okay, I'm going to write about this, and I'm going to take this experience I had, 4 years of just lots of great stories. I'm going to unpack them and then reassemble them into one story. And that's what got me started. And once you write one, well, once you write one book, you have the confidence you can do another.
Yeah. That first one's probably the hardest to get out.
Yeah. Well,
and then it's like, oh, I've done it before. Yeah, I can do it again.
Yeah, I wrote it in the mid '80s, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I looked into getting it published. It was literally going to cost me $30,000, and I would need a garage to keep all the books.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do anything until the mid 2000s, when digital printing came out and print on demand. And so I always had it and dusted it off and went with it. So.
Now I'm sitting here thinking, because I wrote my first book, I don't remember if it was the 80s or early 90s. And now I'm thinking, I know I have it on a floppy disk.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do I have a drive that I could plug a floppy disk into? Yeah. I used to. And I wonder how bad it would be looking at, because I was like in 8th grade. Yeah. So it was not like, a very serious book, though my brother did get an A on the book report that he did on the book. I think he was the only one that ever read it. But
okay.
If you dusted yours off, now I'm tempted to maybe dust mine.
Well, in mine, I wrote mine on a Macintosh, an old school Mac. And so I had an assistant who was kind of very adept at converting it, and she did. And now everything I'll just do is on a PC. So,
yeah. So, Frank, we do have your website here. Frank, pronounce your name, last name for us so we make sure we get it right.
Agin. Frank Agin. Yeah.
How do people often butcher it? Or not really?
I went to 3 years of law school, right? And in law school, they call you by, Mr. Agin. They just hammer it. Graduation, they butchered it. Agin, or I don't know. Yeah, Agin is really the one I usually get. Agin, soft G. But it's okay. I still got a law degree. I mean, it wasn't like they spelled it right. I'm not petty about those things. So,
well, Frank, we are coming close to the end of today's conversation. It has been a pleasure to have you on. Y'all can check out amspirit.com if you want to go check out a little bit of networking to get a lot of referrals. It is always amazing. And again, I recommend that you be at least part of three. No, not at least. You be a part of three networking organizations, and not all referral based. So Frank mentioned, Rotary is good for this, the Chamber is good for that. I recommend getting three different types of groups. And so maybe if you're in the market for a referral based group, you can go check out Frank's group. And if there's not one in your area, you can reach out to him. His website again is up here on the screen. You can find him on LinkedIn. Frank, what do you want to leave us with as we wrap up today's conversation?
Yeah, people always ask me what's the one thing if I'm not networking now, what's the one thing I should be doing to kick it off? And I always tell people, go find something you're really passionate about and get involved. Maybe it's homelessness, maybe it's pet charities, maybe it's something with respect to your kid's school. People always have this aversion about networking. It's like got this yuck factor to it. And when you get out there and you network, or when you volunteer, you're going out there and you're rubbing elbows with people who care about the same thing you care about. You don't even have to talk about what you do. I mean, Tiffanie, if you're out working with somebody, hey, we're both really into this, they're going to ask, what do you do? And it's going to come out, and you'll just feel better for it. So that's my parting shot.
Awesome. Well, Frank, I want to say thank you so very much for being here for our Tuesday talks. And y'all, it is Tuesday. So just remember that every week we have our Tuesday events. We start at 2:33. We wrap up at 3:55, giving you plenty of time to, 3 to 5 minutes in between your meetings. But we have a lot of fun. The first Tuesday of the month is our monthly mastermind. Next week is our Brewing Up Business event. Then we have our More Abundant Entrepreneur show the third Tuesday of the month. You can find all of our events at moreabundantentrepreneur.com/events. Come on out, network, hang out, have some fun. Frank, thank you so very much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And happy networking, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. I was going to give us the outro. Where's our outro? Here we go.